So thank you very much for the invitation to participate with Casalt in this important work. So I'd like to start with an opening prayer and a smudge. And I do have a bit of information that I'll go over shortly. And I always do this before I do anything else when I'm in classes. All right, so this is what we're going to cover today for the next 1 hour. And so smudging into prayer, I also am going to introduce myself and invite you to introduce yourselves. I'm going to go over some of the resources in this course, some of the authors that I selected, and one of the features of this course being a dialogue forum. So I want to just talk about that for a short bit. And then I just want to go into worldviews. What is a worldview? And why this module is included in the decolonizing and indigenizing language education pedagogy. So from this slide, I'm going to take a look at the worldview of Indigenous peoples and compare it to the worldviews of Canadian or Western society. And we're going to do a breakout room activity with that slide. And that will, I'll have some questions for you there. And then the final thing we'll do is closure and final thoughts. Okay, so I'm going to just, do I need to have a break here so that any type of French translation has to happen, or is this okay for me just to carry on?
No, that's okay. Yeah, just carry on. I had just included the French on the slides there for for anyone who needs it.
Okay, so I have started with a smudge and a prayer, which is one of our protocols, and it's to acknowledge our place in creation and by offering a prayer to start a meeting or a session or an event such as today. And during a smudge, plant leaves or stems are placed in the container and ignited with a wooden match. And the flame is then gently fanned out and the smoke is wafted over the person, either by hand or with a needle feather. So the person uses the smoke to purify the spirit, heart, mind, and body. The ashes that are produced once the smudge is burned out are returned to Mother Earth by disposing them outside on bare soil. So we don't usually or ever put them in the garbage. A person can smudge themselves or someone else can lead a smudge by holding the container and directing the smoke over others. So I do have and have included a little bit of background on smudging, just for people who never had an opportunity. So I have a 1.5-page resource, which I'm currently sharing. I hope you can all see it. Yep. And so with this, sacred smoke created from burning medicinal plants is an aspect of many cultures and religions the world over. So in North America, it is a practice common to Indigenous peoples, perhaps not Inuit people. They have their own opening protocols for this type of session. And we call it smudging. And in our language, it's Mia Gatsige. Many, but not all Indigenous cultures in Canada will smudge, but may have different beliefs associated with the smoke and different ceremonies and protocols. So I just want to focus a little bit of time on what those protocols are. So when we do smudging, it is a ceremony for purifying or cleansing. And there are 4 elements involved: the container. So I'm just going to put my container in front of the camera. So I just use a little frying pan. It's made out of, I don't know what it's made of. It's a cast iron frying pan. And it's small enough that I can hold it in my hand. And we use different plants. So we can use cedar, sweetgrass, sage, or fungus. And I just wanted to show you a couple of these medicines. So this is what we would gather sweetgrass in the summertime, usually in the month of late July, early August, and into August. And from the green strands of the sweetgrass, we'll braid it into a braid. And we always light the bottom of the braid. So there's a little knot here, and you just remove that knot, and then you can commence igniting it with a match on this side. Another medicine that we'll use is sage, and that's what I used just now. And I have a bunch of sage in my pot here. And there are two different types of sage. And again, we collect this August, July. It's white, and then we dry it, and then we can pull it off the stem easily once it's dry. And so like just pull it off the stem and roll it up into a little ball, and this ignites. So for a personal smudge, I will use about that much. And for a smudge of many people, I'd just make the ball a little bit bigger. So just to give you a sense of smudging. And I also have cedar on there. I have cedar in a bag. Again, it's collected. I'm in the Plains region. So I have collected cedar and dried it, and it is completely dry. And same thing, we can burn this, and it will give off a nice distinct odor. I don't say odor, but whatever. And then there's the fungus. Okay, so fungus grows on the tree, and we harvest it off the tree. When we're harvesting these medicines, we always put tobacco down as a reciprocal gift back to these medicines, which we believe are alive and they have spirit, and that we want to use them for a good purpose. Okay, and during a smudge, plant leaves or stems are placed in the container. I just went over that in the PowerPoint slide. Smudging is also used to clear negative energy from rooms. And some of our medicines, like the cedar, will also destroy um, and cleanse your homes or your offices of any type of viruses, interestingly. Because smudging is vital to so many Indigenous patients in hospitals, hospitals are now accommodating smudging within their buildings by designating certain areas for smudging. Hospitals will even accommodate smudging in a patient's room in an end-of-life situation. Cultural awareness of Indigenous healing practices is included in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action as point number 22. And some school districts are recognizing smudging as necessary for their Indigenous students and have written guidelines and protocols. Smudging ceremonies are also used to educate non-Indigenous students about Indigenous culture and beliefs. And there is a link within this document why the New Cha North fought a classroom smudging case and won. Because we don't believe it's a religion. We don't have a religion. It's our whole worldview is based on a spirituality, which is woven into everything that we do. So when it comes to developing guidelines and protocols for smudging within a health or education organization, it's important and recommended that the guidelines and protocols be developed with the input of elders. If you were invited to participate in a smudge and are unsure of protocols, ask the person who invited you, and failing that, just watch closely and follow what others are doing. So this document, I found it online and I downloaded it. It's from ictinc.ca, and I have another one of their documents that I'm going to be going through later this evening. So I'm just going to go over some of the resources that were selected for this 5-hour course. It's 5 hours, and that limits how much time, well, the time limits how much we can actually dive into with Indigenous worldview and wisdom and worldview. So I chose authors and writers and storytellers who are distinguished amongst their people. And I've read their work, and I just wanted to share their incredible wisdom and their incredible knowledge with all of you. So the first person that I'm identifying on my list is the Haudenosaunee clan mother, whose name I have a really difficult time saying. Her English name is Norma Jacobs. So the introduction to this book, um, and again, it's in Haudenosaunee language, and um, I can't say it either, but the English subtitle is Reflecting on Our Journeys. And if you want to add a resource to your library, I would highly recommend this, and it's going to be found in the course, because she has chapters where it's her voice, and she's speaking about Haudenosaunee knowledge, and it's the very first resource in the course of the 5 modules, because I placed there the words that come before all else. And it's in this book. I shared a video link to her in the course that you can actually listen to her sharing the words that come before all else. So that's the first resource. Another Haudenosaunee person that I selected, it was actually a speech that he shared to his fellow psychiatrists. He's a doctor of psychiatry. He's the first Indigenous psychiatrist in Canada. And I didn't put his name on this list. I didn't put any other names on this list. It's going to be a surprise, except for the ones that I'm actually showing you their books. And then I have a Cree professor who's retired from the First Nations University of Canada, and he's talking about the ethics of, what does he call it? It's about ethics, and we always talk about 2 worldviews, and what's coming in the middle is how do we get to know each other, find out about each other in a truthful way. So Willie Ermine. Coming from another point of view, I wanted to also privilege this book, Rupert Ross. It's Indigenous Healing, and the subtitle is Exploring Traditional Paths. And Rupert Ross was a judge. He's still alive, but he's retired. And he's a judge and worked amongst the Northern peoples in Ontario in the circuit as a circuit judge. And this book shares a lot of insights that I think, from a non-Indigenous person's point of view, he really opened his mind to truly understand the worldview of Indigenous peoples that he was working with. And so I always recommend this book. um, an Anishinaabe author, artist, and poet. I selected 3 of her works, 2 articles. She's talking about Anishinaabe knowledge. And then another one where I'm actually showing a video where she's telling stories, because she's a storyteller, and she's sharing 3 stories. And I just find her very fascinating, the way she tells stories and the way she is able to pull the knowledge of those stories to really educate us. And then I have also a Métis health researcher who did her work at the University of British Columbia. And she shares a lot of insights on decolonizing curriculum to include Indigenous knowledge and wisdom. So the judge who's not Indigenous, that's Rupert Ross. Okay, so I only was able to select 6 authors um, within the 5-hour course. So I hope you enjoy them. And another thing that I'm going to reveal is that a lot of their papers and articles are on journals, online journals. And a lot of them you have to have membership to, or to be able to access them, you have to pay for them. So what I did is I summarized them in PowerPoints throughout the course so that if you can't access them, what we are also recommending is that if you have your university affiliation, and you still have, if you're still a member of that university, you might be able to access them through the university. Okay. Another part of this course that I wanted to include was being able to interact with peers. So I'm featuring in the course a dialogue forum for each of the 5 modules. You're invited to make a post in the dialogue forum, and also not only start a post, but also respond to one of your peers' posts. And that way you get to share insights of what you get out of that module or that reading, or resource or video, whatever it is. And then that insight enriches others, and you get enriched yourself from their comments. So you can also share your best pedagogical practices. So it's really intriguing to hear some of the work that you're already sharing within this 1-hour webinar. And maybe you can learn more from each other. Especially I'm intrigued with the member who's in BC and uses storytelling in her classroom, in her language classroom. So you can acquire new like-minded friends who you can continue to develop a relationship with as practicing second language teachers. Okay, we have 16 more minutes left in our time. So this slide is about the numbers of people according to 2021 Statistics Canada. So First Nations, the population is 1,048,445 people, and there are 630 reserves all across the land. And Métis, 624,420 who have self-identified as Métis within that same Statistics Canada report, and Inuit, 70,545. So I pulled a quote from Professor Leroy Littlebear, who's Kainai, and he says a worldview can pertain to an individual, group, or society. Overall, a worldview is a set of beliefs and values that are honored and withheld by a number of people. A worldview includes how the person or group interacts with the world around them, including land, animals, and people. Every person in society has a worldview. Many societies pass on their worldview to their children to ensure worldview continuity. And as people interact and learn from one another, it is not uncommon for them to acquire the beliefs of other worldviews. Worldviews evolve as people and societies evolve. Okay, so from a resource again that I found online for in particular for this webinar, I did summarize it, and I did put it into so the package of what you would receive if you took this 1-hour webinar. So what I did is I put on the left-hand side, and I tried to use descriptors, but I'm not great. I'm not crazy about the first descriptor, belief or fact. But essentially, what they're saying is that Indigenous peoples have a spiritual orientation, and that is contrasted with a Western worldview where it is scientific, based on theory, and requires evidence or proof of being a salient notion or fact, essentially. Truth for an Indigenous peoples, there can be many truths based on that individual's experiences. And a lot of Indigenous peoples hold the characteristic of being humble. Okay, so that's really important. And there's only one truth from a Western point of view, and it's based on science or Western laws. There's always one truth when it comes to a defendant and a person who is on the other side of the table. So this course on Indigenous wisdom and worldviews is all about exploring the worldviews of select Indigenous peoples, not all, just for the sake of the 5-hour modules. And I really hope that when you delve into the course that you will be inspired to continue broadening your awareness and your scope of understanding. So I really appreciate that you've all participated this evening, and um, if at any time, I'm always available if you want to share during the course of the modules, and we'll figure out how we can do that. So these are the resources that I've used in this presentation, and I want to finish by saying Kita Damskat Nawal, Kakyo Nawago Mangantik. And that means I shake hands with all of you, and part of that word in Kita Damskat Nawal, Damskawal means that when we share our gifts with each other, when we meet, then we enhance each other. And that is the design of our universe. And the other part of the closing statement that I made is we are all related. And I hope that that comes through in this course for you.